My father did not kick me out of the house. He just pretended that I had never been there. After my mother died, I became an unnecessary witness to his new life. My stepmother hated me, his new daughter got everything, and I got silence and guilt for every day I ruined. At the age of 12, I was silently given to my aunt as an unwanted item. But 10 years later, when he was left without money, without love, and without any choice, he remembered me again. Because it turned out that the only thing he needed from me was my house. I was 8 when my mom died. I still remember what it smelled like in that hospital room. A mixture of chemical disinfectants, coffee from the vending machine in the hallway, and the faint, barely audible smell of her favorite hand cream, which she used to apply when she was at home and could hold it herself. I stood at her bedside, my fingers clutching the silk edge of her blanket. She could no longer speak. Her eyes were half closed, but she was breathing. It was our last day together. He, my dad, was sitting on a chair in the corner, scrolling through his phone. I don't remember him saying anything important to me. Nothing that would stay in my heart for the rest of my life. There was no hold on or everything will be fine or even a simple I'm here for you. He was just there in that room. Like a shadow. Like an outsider. Like someone waiting to leave. After she was gone, everything in the world became deaf. I was not told directly that she had died. I was told, Mom is not coming anymore. And I was sitting on the carpet in the living room of our house in Connecticut, counting the stitches on the soft pillow. I had a favorite toy at the time, a fox with a red bow sewn on it. I was clutching it in my arms, waiting for my mom to come back. Because she couldn't have left like that, she just didn't come back. I waited every night. First a day. Then a week. Then a month. He didn't explain anything. He just lived. The first months after my mom's death, I was like invisible. He didn't yell at me, didn't scold me. But he also didn't ask how I was doing, read me stories, or bring me ice cream. He would go to work, come back, turn on the TV and have dinner. And I would sit on the stairs of the second floor and listen to his fork clacking against his plate. Sometimes I would talk to myself. I replayed scenes in my head in which my mother would come back, stroke my head, and ask me how school was going. I even imagined that she was sick again, but now she would get better. It was just a game. I also started to remember things that I hadn't noticed before. For example, how she often sat alone in the car, with wet eyes. How she would lock herself in the bathroom for a long time. And then one night I woke up and heard her screaming at my dad. I can't take it anymore, Richard. I don't have to live in this cold. Then go, he replied. I was lying under the blanket and clutching the fox in my arms. I didn't know what a divorce was, but I knew that it was something after which people no longer lived together. After my mom left, our house became even quieter. But not like in the library. It was like in an abandoned house where the wind whistles through the holes in the walls. I would wake up in an empty room, go to the kitchen, sit down at the table, and sit there for an hour because no one called for breakfast. Sometimes I would find pizza from yesterday in the fridge. Sometimes it was just water. Dad did not ask if I had eaten. He didn't ask me anything. He lived next door to me, as if I were a neighbor he just didn't notice. I learned to be silent. I learned not to cry in front of him. Because once, when I was crying in the kitchen and said, I want my mom, he just answered, me too. And he left. He just left, leaving me there with teary eyes and an empty stomach. Aunt Carol saved me. She was his sister. She would come sometimes, bring me things, sweaters that smelled like lavender, cookies in metal cans, books about seals. She would sit on the floor with me and build towers with cubes. She also hugged me. Not just hugged me, but as if I was allowed to be small, vulnerable, alive. Sometimes she would take me to her house for the weekend. Everything was different there, a blanket on the couch that she knitted herself, large cups of cocoa, garlands in the hallway even after Christmas. She would ask me if I wanted more cookies, if I missed my mom, if no one was hurting me at school. You can tell me anything, girl. I will always listen to you. I didn't say everything at once. I was afraid that if I did, she would stop taking me. But I dreamed of staying with her forever. Because Aunt Carol was the only adult in the world who cared about me, really cared. And yet, I always came home to a place where the walls were silent and the plates were in the sink by themselves. I was waiting. Maybe something would change. Maybe he would wake up, like in the movies, where the father remembers that he has a daughter and starts making breakfast. But instead, he brought another woman. I remember well the first day I saw her. Michelle. She appeared unexpectedly, the way something that changes everything often comes, without warning. My dad didn't tell me that someone was coming. I came home from school, dropped my backpack by the stairs, and saw her in the kitchen. She was standing at the stove, heating something in the microwave. She was tall, bright, and smiling. Her nails were shiny, as if they had just been applied. Her hair was in a tight ponytail, and she wore bright shadows on her eyes. She turned to me and said in a voice that sounded like it came from a TV. "Hi, sweetie. I'm Michelle. I'm going to come to see you from now on, okay?" I just nodded. Without even taking off my jacket. She didn't ask me my name. Her presence immediately filled the entire space, as if my dad and I were living in silence and she had turned the music up to full volume. She came more often than sometimes. She stayed for dinner. Then she stayed overnight. Then, for the whole weekend. And then one day she just stopped coming. Courtney, her daughter, came with her. She was 9, a year older than me. She had shiny hair, a new pink backpack, an iPad in a unicorn case, and thin silver earrings. When she first came to my house, she looked around and said, "Mom, why is it so dark in here?" I stood on the stairs and listened to Michelle laugh. "Because we're still redecorating, honey. This is all temporary." That was the first time I was really scared. Within a week, half of my belongings were boxed up and put in the storage room because Courtney needed more space. My room remained mine only formally. Now it had Courtney's new dressing table, her lighted mirror, and my old books were moved to a box in the attic. We were put in the same room because, as my father said, it would be more fun for us. Michelle never screamed. She just smiled when she hurt. "We're all family now, aren't we, girls?" Courtney had it all. She was allowed new dresses, weekends at the mall, outings with friends. And me? I was told, "You're an adult now. You don't need toys." You're not jealous, are you? I learned to keep quiet even better. But the thing that hurt the most was that my dad didn't see anything. Or didn't want to see. When I would say, "Dad, Courtney took my stuff again," without asking. "Dad, Michelle said I was making too much noise even though I was just laughing." He would just sigh and say, "Don't blow it. She's trying. You just have to be a little more patient." And when I finally got up the courage to say, "I feel like I'm not needed," he stopped talking. He looked to the side. And he said, "This is your home. But you have to learn to be flexible. This is a new life. And it's not easy for all of us." All of us? Only I had no one on my side. Every holiday was a knife in the heart. Courtney celebrated her birthday in perfect dresses, with garlands, cakes, photo shoots. On my birthdays, there was always a reason why the celebration was postponed: the weather, my dad's work, business problems. On my last birthday, they didn't even tell me happy birthday until noon. Michelle spent 3 days making Courtney's cake. And she said to me, "I thought you weren't into that kind of thing anymore. You're not a little girl anymore." I sat silently in the room, looking out the window and thinking, I want to go back to my mom. But my mom was not there. There was only her old cup in the closet, which I sometimes took out secretly just to hold something of hers in my hands. I lived between a world where I was not seen and a world where I was erased. And one day, Michelle said a phrase that scattered my childhood world into the sand. I can't live under the same roof as this girl. She is a problem. And it's all because of her. Dad was silent. And I realized, I'm no longer a child that someone is protecting. I am a burden. I don't remember exactly how it all started that evening. But I remember very well how it ended. It was a Saturday night. Michelle had decided to have a girls' night out. She and Courtney were watching a movie in the living room, eating sushi, drinking soda from bottles wrapped in pink ribbons. I walked over, timidly. I just wanted to sit next to them. To be a part of it. This is for us, Michelle said without even looking at me. You're different ages, you and Courtney aren't interested in being together. Courtney smiled. And you're acting weird, anyway, she added, looking at me as if I were someone very inferior. I walked away, went to my room, and sat on my bed. I was 12. I wasn't really a kid anymore, but I was still a kid. And that night I felt that I was a nobody in my own house. An hour later, I went to the kitchen to pour water. While I was pouring it, Michelle's voice came from the hallway. I can't stand her anymore. She's everywhere. Her eyes are a constant reminder of your ex. Her presence exhausts me, Richard. He mumbled something. I didn't hear him. Take your pick, she said abruptly. Courtney and I, or her. She's like a shadow in this house. I wanted to hide, to disappear. I literally held my breath. The water in the glass was shaking in my hand. I don't want to share space with that girl anymore. If you can't work it out, I'm taking Courtney and we're leaving. And then you'll be alone. With that pitiful, perpetually offended child. I didn't know what to expect. But the next minute I heard my dad say, "Okay. I'll talk to her." When he entered my room, I was already sitting in the corner, wrapped in a blanket. My face was wet. But I wasn't crying anymore. I was quiet. He did not sit down. He was standing. And he said, "It doesn't work anymore, honey. Everyone is tense. You are constantly unhappy, everyone feels this atmosphere. And, maybe it will be better if you live somewhere else for a while. At your aunt's, for example. It won't be forever. Just give everyone a break." I listened and did not believe. I didn't realize that these words were real. "Do you want me to leave?" I asked in a whisper. "I want everyone to feel better. For you and for us." That was the worst part. He didn't say "I love you," he didn't say "I don't want to lose you." He spoke as if it was a decision made at work. I packed my things in silence. I put a few t-shirts, a fox with a bow, and a toothbrush. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I wasn't staying. I dialed Aunt Carol, unable to hold back my tears. She picked up almost immediately. "Carol. Dad said I can't live here anymore." "What happened?" Her voice shook. "Are you safe?" "I just want to get out of here. Please. Come." She arrived 40 minutes later. When I came out with my things, she hugged me as tightly as my mom used to hug me when I fell off my bike. I pressed my nose into her coat and smelled the same smell, lavender. I didn't let go of her for about 5 minutes. In the car, I told her everything. About how Michelle doesn't love me. About how Courtney has everything and I have nothing. About the birthdays that were not celebrated. About the words, "She is a shadow in this house." About how I was afraid I would be sent to an orphanage. And she listened. She did not interrupt. She just squeezed my hand from time to time. "You will not go to any house but mine, do you hear? You are mine. I will not give you away. You are not a shadow. You are the light," but no one wanted to see it. I cried like I had never cried before. I will always remember the first morning at Aunt Carol's house. I woke up to the smell of coffee and cinnamon. Her specialty pastries were in the kitchen by 8 in the morning. She had said in the evening, Tomorrow we are making my favorite cinnamon rolls. Only those whom I love very much bake them for me. That means you. I was lying in the new pajamas she had bought me on the way to her place in the guest room, listening to the cups clinking in the hallway. It was so quiet and cozy, as if I had woken up in another life. Not in my dad's house. I was in my own home. The first breakfast was a fairy tale. Carol didn't just feed me, she talked to me. She asked me about school, my favorite books, what cartoons I liked, even what shape of clouds I could see from the window. I was relaxing. Slowly. Every phrase she said was like a pillow under my ribs, where before there were only corners. The first month at Aunt Carol's passed like a dream. I lived like a rented joy. I had a room with flowered curtains, my own bed, a closet with shelves where I could put my own things. We had Saturday cocoa, Friday movie nights, quiet evenings with books and conversations. But still, there was fear inside me, it was only temporary. Soon my dad would come back and say that I had to go back. He would say that he was sorry, that he missed me, that he changed his mind. I was waiting for that. A day, 2, a week, a month. And he didn't show up. He didn't call. He didn't write. He didn't ask if I was alive. After breakfast, she said, "We're going to file for custody. Do you mind staying in my house forever?" What does that mean? I didn't quite understand. It means that you will be officially with me. I'll be able to protect you on paper, not just in my heart. And no one can take you away. It scared me. Because I still had the thought, what if my dad changes his mind? Suddenly he would appear and say, "Come back." It was a mistake? And would Dad let me? Carol was silent for a moment. Then she sighed and answered, "I don't know. Do you mind if I call him?" "What are you going to talk to him about?" "About getting guardianship. I can't live in the shadows anymore. You've been with me for a month now. I haven't just sheltered you, I've accepted you. And I want it to be real." I didn't say anything. I was afraid he would say no. But Carol picked up the phone. She dialed his number. I heard every word because I was sitting right next to him, pressed into the back of a chair, holding my breath. He answered the phone right away. "Richard, hi. It's Carol." "Oh, hi," his voice was normal. Like she was calling to ask for a meat pie recipe. "I wanted to talk about Emma." "Everything okay?" Dry. "Yes. More than okay. I've had her for a month now, and I thought it would be logical to get custody. Legally. So that she would be under my protection, not only formally." There were a few seconds of silence. And then he laughed. As if relieved. "Jesus. I thought you'd offer sooner." "What?" "Of course. Go ahead and sign it." "I'll sign anything. She's better off with you. And, it's easier for me. I honestly don't know what to do with her." Carol stopped talking. "It's a baby, Richard. It's not a contract." "I know. But I'm not cut out for this. I wasn't a good father. And you know that." She hung up the phone slowly. She looked at me. And I was silent. Because it was both a relief and a pain. Relief because I didn't have to go back. Pain because he let me go, so easily. "Did you hear that?" Carol asked. I nodded. And I whispered. He was happy. That he didn't need me anymore. Carol reached up, hugged me from behind, and whispered. "But I need you. Not because I have to. But because I want to." The next week we started the paperwork. Now it's official. Guardianship. Legally. Full-fledged. When the social worker asked me, "Why do you want to live with your aunt?" I answered. "Because she is the only one who chose me." "My dad?" "No, I miss him. None, give me a chance to change things. None, this is my child. That was the first time I realized that I was not his priority. Not ever. The process lasted 2.5 months. Each visit to social services was full of questions, forms, stories, memories. And every time I was asked, "Are you sure you want to live with your aunt?" I answered, "Yes. She sees me." And I remember the day when I was given a new document. The guardianship was officially transferred to Aunt Carol. I looked at the paper and could not believe that this piece of official text meant that I would never go back there again. Never again. When my aunt and I got in the car after the court, she looked at me and said, "Welcome home, girl." I hugged her and answered through my tears, "I'm home for the first time." Moving to a new school was not scary. It was strange. It was as if I found myself in a world where everyone was living a parallel life while I was getting out of the basement. There were kids who brought homemade lunches in thermoses, friendly girls who talked about their pets, teachers who remembered your name on the second day. And me, with a new backpack bought by my aunt, with braided hair and a fake smile. I was quiet, but very attentive. I was scanning every voice, every change of intonation, every "oh, don't pay attention, she's just like that." It seemed to me that I was carrying someone else's smell in me, the smell of unwantedness. That it was following me, that everyone felt that I was not like them. For the first weeks, I rode in silence in Carol's car, holding my backpack on my lap and not asking questions. And she always spoke. "On Friday, let's go to the library, do you want to? I know one shelf, there are only books about strong girls." I thought, maybe you want to take up drawing? There's an art class in the center. I like the way you hold the pen. It's confident. That's a good sign. Her words weren't great. But they were the only kind words I've heard in recent years without a but. One day, after school, I found her in the kitchen with some papers. She hid one of them in fear. I froze. The old thing kicked in, I had done something wrong. "What is it?" I whispered. It's nothing. Just looking for something useful for you." Then she did show me. It was an application for art therapy for children with post-traumatic experiences. It was like something hit me. It was the first time I realized that she saw not just a child, but my wound. And she is not afraid of it. She wants to treat it. She also hung my first drawings on the refrigerator. Not because they were beautiful, but because they were mine. One day I brought home a colored map of the United States from school, all crooked outlines and wrong colors. She looked at it and said, "Wow, your Texas looks like a dinosaur. It's brilliant." And that was the first time I laughed out loud. But at night, I still woke up from dreams in which I heard, "You are superfluous. You spoil everything. You are the reason we have problems." One night I cried in the night. Quietly, but Carol heard me. She didn't ask, "What's wrong?" She just lay down next to me. And she held my hand. And then I realized, this is true love, the one that is silent next to you. Not the one that shouts at you to become better. The next day she said, "You can be whoever you want. And even if you just be yourself, I'm already proud of you." I didn't answer. But in English class, when I had to write a short essay about my home, I wrote, "My home smells like cinnamon rolls and silence, where I am not afraid." And for the first time, the teacher smiled and said, "That's very beautiful. And deep." And I thought, what if I'm not broken? Maybe I'm just healing? I was 22. I was living on the campus of a medical university where I had entered on a full scholarship. Every time I got an A for a difficult module or was praised in my hospital internship, I thought of Aunt Carol. Without her, I wouldn't be here. I was the girl who came to all the classes, read more than she was supposed to, didn't skip class even in the rain, and wrote down even the things she wasn't supposed to. My room was in order. I went to bed at 10 o'clock sharp. I also opened Instagram a lot. It sounds trivial. But I had a reason. I am not subscribed to my father's account. But he is. And so is Michelle. Her page is like a glossy magazine: rings, vacations, new shopping tours, smoothies against the ocean. Her daughter Courtney is the best girl in the world, flowers in a beauty salon, captions like, "Appreciate those who make you happy." I am happy. I couldn't help but go in. I was tormented. I wasn't watching, I was checking. As if I wanted to make sure that they really didn't need me. Because if I had seen even one mention of me there, of how much they missed me, maybe my heart would have cracked. But there was not a word. Not a single daughter in 10 years. That day, I was returning from my duty at the training clinic. I went to my room, put on a cup of coffee, and checked my email. Among the spam, promotions, and newsletters, there was an email with the headline, "Property Notice, 121 Elmwood Avenue, Transfer Alert." I sat up straight. Elmwood Avenue was my old address. The house where I grew up with my mom and, with them. I thought I'd forgotten about it long ago. I opened the letter. Dear Emma L. Harris, you are listed as the official owner of the property at 121 Elmwood Avenue. This email is automatically generated when you submit a request to sell the property. Please confirm or decline your intention. The request came from Richard Harris. Your consent is required. I read it 3 times. What? I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking. I stood in the middle of the kitchen with my laptop on the table and didn't understand what was happening. Am I the owner? But how? This house is his? Didn't he get it after his mom? I called my aunt. Emma? Is something wrong? I told her about the letter. She didn't say anything for a long time. And then she said, "Let's contact the relevant services to clarify the situation." And we did. We went to the county recorder's office, and in a few days we had the deed to the house. My mother, she made a deed of gift for me. Before she died. Secretly from my father. He thought everything belonged to him. But my mom knew how he was about things. So she probably didn't want that house to belong to anyone else but me. So my dad lived in the house that was mine all his life? They lived in the house that was mine from the beginning. In the house from which I was kicked out. I couldn't understand, was it irony? Revenge? But it was definitely not a coincidence. 2 days later, my dad called me. My phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen in 10 years. I didn't answer right away. But when I did, I heard a voice that was completely different from the one I remembered. Emma, hi. Pause. I didn't know the house was in your name. It was unexpected. We've put the papers in for sale. Well, business has been a little slow. But when we got the rejection, Michelle left. With Courtney. She said she didn't want to live in a ruin anymore. I didn't say anything. I'm not calling to ask. But, if you can, sell it, and, help me get the business back up and running, and then I can get everything back on track. We'll be fine, he continued timidly. Maybe you don't hold a grudge? I acted badly then. But, it was complicated. Resentment? This word seemed so small to me. I didn't say anything. Just. I need to think about it. I didn't sleep at night. Because part of me wanted to help. Part of me was still that girl hoping to hear, "I need you." Not your house. You. I finally decided to help. I made an appointment with a notary, prepared all the necessary documents, checked the registers, and signed the first forms to start the sale procedure. I couldn't believe I was doing this, selling the house that had caused me so much pain. But I still had a thought in my mind, maybe this would close an old chapter. Maybe we could finally start a new one. And then he started calling. Regularly. At first, he was just curious. How are you? Maybe I'll stop by, I haven't seen you for a long time, are you a grown woman now? And he did come. He stood in the doorway of my dormitory with coffee in his hands and flowers. He could not believe that I was already so grown up. He was smiling. He said, "I'm proud of you, Emma. I wish I had supported you earlier. But maybe it's not too late to fix things, right?" We sat on a bench near the campus and talked for about 40 minutes. He told me that he wanted to start a new business, a small business, that with the money from the sale of his house he could finally get back on his feet. And then he said, "Maybe after that we can go somewhere? Just to relax. Like father and daughter." I listened to him, and something warmed inside me. No, not faith. But hope. Maybe he really needs me? Maybe he wants to become a part of my life? A part of his own daughter's life? I became that 8-year-old girl again, sitting by the window, waiting for him to say, "You are not alone. I'm here." We found buyers. It was a couple. They had been looking for a house in a quiet neighborhood for a long time, and Elmwood Avenue was perfect for them. We set a date to sign a preliminary contract. Everything was almost ready. And then, the day before the meeting, I went on Instagram. Not even on purpose. Just, as usual. Automatically. Michelle's post. A photo in the backyard of the house. Caption, "What's real always comes back, red heart hashtag our hashtag family." And my father's tag. I scrolled down the page. There were stories. A video of Courtney in the kitchen, at the table I remember from my childhood. A selfie of Michelle in the hall and the caption, "We are home again." But it's so sad that we have to say goodbye to the past, to our family. But it's all for a better future. Home. The place where I was once expelled. My fingers went cold. I wrote to my dad with shaking hands. "Is Michelle back? Are you two together?" A minute later he replied. "It's complicated. She just lived for a while. And we decided to give each other another chance. But you know that doesn't change anything about you. It doesn't change anything." He didn't want to sell the house because he was desperate. It was because he wanted to sell my house to make a life for her. For her and Courtney. Again. My heart clenched. It wasn't a betrayal. It was a repetition of the scenario in which I always play the role of the superfluous. I turned off my phone. And I didn't cancel the meeting with the buyers. I called my aunt. My voice was trembling, but not from resentment. It was because I had to stand up for myself for the first time. I needed a plan. And I had to be determined, I felt it. I almost sold the house. I was worried about his future, I almost sacrificed my future for him again. And I almost believed again. But this time I stopped in time. My aunt said, "Most people grow up when they pay taxes. But you grow up when you learn not to give yourself up for a little bit of warmth." I was silent. And then I smiled. It was a bitter victory. But the victory was mine. I did not cancel the sale of the house. On the contrary, I accelerated everything. Now that I saw the true picture, that they were together again in the same lie, in the same scenario, the decision came to me not with anger, but with peace. They had to go. I had to leave it behind. I signed the final documents. The buyers were delighted. The house was really beautiful, with a garden, spacious. I remembered how my mom used to plant her favorite chrysanthemums in that yard. Now there will be another family there. Another life. And it was time for me to start mine. 2 weeks later, I received an official transfer from a notary. The amount was decent. I knew that I could rent an apartment in the city center, buy a new car, pay for my studies in advance. But I did something else. I found a small, bright house in a quiet neighborhood, 10 minutes from Aunt Carol's house. 1 story. White. With a small garden, a veranda, and 3 rooms. I walked in for the first time with the keys in my hand and felt, not status or victory. It was a feeling of belonging. This is my home. Not a home where I am tolerated. Not a home where I was taught to be silent. This is my home. My place. My silence, which warms, not frightens. On the first weekend, I hung photos of my mother on the walls. In the living room, her smile in a yellow sweater. In the bedroom, the two of us in the park, where I hold her hand. In the kitchen, there is her old chocolate cake recipe, handwritten on yellowed paper. I framed it. I bought a lavender-colored blanket. And I put up a shelf with the books I used to read with my aunt. There was not a single voice in this house that told me you are superfluous. Only mine, which whispered. Finally. You are home. And there, in my new kitchen, sitting with a cup of tea by the window, I thought about the future. About my children, whom I did not yet know, but already loved in my imagination. I promised myself. There will be no cold silence in this house. There will be no fear of sitting at the table. It will smell like vanilla, sound like laughter, and have doors that are always open. Here, children will know that they are not a shadow. They are the center of everything. Because now I knew what I never had. And so I could give it to them. I had just planted my first flowers in the garden. Lilac flowers. Like the ones my mom used to love. I wasn't particularly good at planting, my hands were in the ground, my hair was disheveled, but my heart was calm. After all, I was finally breathing with a full chest. And it was at that moment that the phone rang. It was my father. I didn't answer at first. Then a second time. A third time. The message. Emma, we need to talk. It's serious. I replied. Write in a message. No, you have to hear me. I thought maybe he wanted to apologize. He realized something. He wants to talk like a human being. I took a deep breath and picked up the phone. His voice was different. Not sad. It was angry. You really did it, didn't you? You sold the house? Our house? Emma, how could you? You let me down. You knew how much I relied on that deal. I would have gotten the business back. I would have gotten it all back. I didn't say anything. Michelle says you ruined our chances. Do you want us to stay on the street? Did you ever want me to have a roof over my head when you kicked me out? He was silent. And then, abruptly, with a claim. We're a family, haven't you forgotten? Family? How could you treat your father like that? I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I spoke quietly. I spoke clearly. For the first time, like an adult who no longer needed permission to exist. I was wrong. I thought you wanted me back. You only wanted my house back. I'm not your wallet. I'm not your backup. I'm not a girl you can throw away again when it's inconvenient. You didn't lose because of me. You lost when you chose Michelle. When you chose convenience over the truth. When you betrayed not only my mom, but me as well. And most importantly, I don't owe you anything anymore. He hung up the phone. And I knew it was the last call. Not because he would never call again. But because he no longer lives in me. I closed the phone. I went back into the house. I wiped my hands off the ground and put the kettle on. Lilacs were blooming outside. The house was quiet. And this silence was not loneliness, but freedom. I thought for a long time about how to close this story. Because sometimes we live as if we can let go of something simply because time has passed. But the truth is that you have to let go consciously. And with dignity. That morning, I sat down at the table in my kitchen, pouring myself a cup of cocoa, just like Aunt Carol used to do. I had a blank piece of paper in front of me. And I wrote. Mom. You didn't live to see me grow up. How I stand on my own 2 feet. How I choose who will be in my house and who will not. But I felt you every step of the way. When I was kicked out, I remembered how you whispered to me, you are strong even when you cry. When my aunt hugged me, I heard your heart. When I sold our house, I felt you standing behind me and saying, "It's not yours anymore. Build your own." I know you were afraid that it would break me. But it didn't. Because you left me with the most important thing, the ability to feel what is love and what is its likeness. Thank you, Mom. For everything you've done. And for everything you taught me later. And then I wrote a letter to myself, 8 years old. You were not weak. You were scared. And no one explained to you that it was normal. You were not too sensitive. You were a child who was not allowed to be heard. And everything you felt made sense. I know you were waiting for someone to say, "You are worthy of love just because you are." So I will say it to you. Now. Finally. You are. You are needed. And you are not a shadow. And now that I've said that, I'm free. My past no longer controls me. My pain no longer dictates my decisions. I breathe. I create. I am living. My home is not just a house. It is a space where I listen to myself without expecting anyone to see me. There will be music here. There will be friends. Maybe, one day, children. And in this house, they will know that they will never be given away because it is more convenient. They will know that they are seen. That they have been chosen. Just as I once dreamed of being chosen. My conclusion? The people who betrayed you will always be convinced that it's your fault. But the truth is not something you have to prove. It is something you live. If you were not chosen, choose yourself. If you were betrayed, do not become cruel, become whole. If you were taught to be silent, learn to speak. And speak loudly. And remember. You are not a problem. You are not superfluous. You are not an emptiness. You are a story. And you have the right to complete it the way your heart feels. And I have completed mine.